Okay. Alrighty. So, I wanted to add this caveat to the beginning of this episode because what we're going to be talking about here is something that's sensitive to a lot of people. And I know because I've grown up with these kind of people my entire life. But we are not talking about the demonization of any particular religion. Truthfully, I'm talking about religion itself, okay? Because religion is a control system. And yeah, there is some benefit to it, especially with regards moral systems that people seem to think they have to have in place. Although when we get to the end of this episode, you'll realize that's not necessary. And the reason I don't like the control system is because I believe that it prevents enlightenment, that it leads you down a dead-end street, that it erases opposing history, history that you may need. As an example, when the conquistadors came over to South America and they found the Aztecs, they destroyed their entire history. Well, as it turns out, we needed that history. They had a culture that is directly related to what we're talking about here. And more importantly, it pits you against opposing thoughts. This is the reason that we have war today, is because the control systems that are in place, whether it be religion, economy, politics, it's designed to pit you against each other. Why? Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is the common phrase. When you pit two groups against each other, you don't have to deal with them. They'll take care of themselves. So that's the reason we wanted to put this caveat in there. The other reason I don't want to do it is because in this episode I say that I can't equate the Bible with the catastrophe cycle. That's not entirely true. The reason is, you have to think of it this way. If you had a bucket full of fool's gold and you threw some gold in it, you'd have to dig through it to find it, but there are some nuggets in there. In particular, the Roman system of things had a habit of copying the civilizations that they conquered and absorbing their folklore, their mythology, their religion into their way of doing things. And so, obviously, you'll understand at the end of this episode, obviously, there's going to be some nuggets in there, but that's really a repeating of more ancient cultures. And so, yeah, you're going to find some of that there. What we're talking about here, though, is the control system, how it was set up, and what it leads to. The other thing that I'm going to add to this caveat is what I personally am calling now the Jesus dude. Okay? And the reason is, again, the Roman culture has a habit of copying everything. In my studies over the past 4 years, the Jesus dude keeps showing up. However, under different names. As an example, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha is another one, another name that you'll find it under. The Hopis have it under the name Pahanet. The Egyptians have it under the name Osiris. Just 4 examples of what I'm talking about. All over the world, this guy shows up, usually in their mythologies, at the beginning of a new cycle, after the catastrophe has happened and when mankind needs to learn how to do things again. The Jesus dude is always described in the same way. I'm going to erase this here. Jesus dude is described as a white guy, okay, with a beard, who wears a robe and sandals, who is known as abhorring war and violence. Okay. walks on water. I'm not kidding. It shows up in all of them. Walks on water. Miraculously cures people of many illnesses and even raises the dead. Always walks around with 12 disciples. Okay, look up each one of them. That's the common themes throughout the world of the Jesus Stew. I wish I could tell you more about it, but unfortunately, I keep finding him in all the mythologies, but no one has ever done written a book on it or has done a comprehensive study on it. Maybe someday when I find the time, I'm going to have to write the book. But I keep coming across this guy in all the mythologies around the world. Okay? So keep that in mind. We're not telling people what they should or should not believe. We're just saying don't fall under a control system that doesn't allow you to get the history that is necessary for you to understand the catastrophe cycle.
We're live.
All right. Good deal. Okay. Close that. Do we dare close that in the summertime?
Fuck, right?
It's freaking hot. How you doing? Rude Awakening here. Tommy and I are working on episode 6. Okay. I'm going to have to switch from green.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know where the black one went.
Not a problem. And I know it's been a long time, but as you remember, Tommy and I work our asses off. And it's summertime, our peak season, and we've just been working like crazy. So, I am going to erase last episode's notes, and this time we're going to start with episode 6. And we're going to talk about something that's going to get me in a lot of fucking trouble.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So after this, you're either gonna love me or you're gonna hate me. Okay. So we're at episode 6. Episode. Let's go 6. Roman numerals. You'll see why we're doing that.
That makes sense. Holy
Okay.
God.
But as we go along, we need to track something. Okay. Shots and beer. Scott. And Tommy.
Oh, shit.
You lose count already?
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2,
4.
and just to make it official, I'll step off the camera here and then crack one open. And Scott is now at 3 beers.
So I am...
And 1 shot.
7 shots so far for me.
Okay.
Sorry
1,
about that.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And I think I'm the same with beers.
Same with beers, 3?
Yep.
Okay, but you had tall boys.
Oh, yeah, true.
Okay. All right. So, just to let you know, 2 drunken guys teaching science and history today.
It's perfect.
Okay. So, I am doing this as a request. And the request was, we talked about a lot of mythologies, how it supports the catastrophe theory that we were talking about. We've talked about a number of them already. I think I'm up to 10 different mythologies that are supporting the geological and astrological and archaeological science. Okay, but I keep getting this request for the Bible. Okay, and so that's what we're going to talk about. And it's a difficult one for me because I live in the Western world. Bible plays a big part of family life and civilization and so forth. And so really don't want to breach that particular subject, but it keeps coming up as a request. And ultimately, here's what it comes down to. I can't equate it. And the reason I can't equate it is because of what I'm going to show you today. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm anti-God or I have some animosity towards religion. The fact of the matter is, and Tom and I have talked this a number of times, both of us have read the Bible numerous times. The last count that I had was I have gone through it cover to cover at least 8 times. And when I did it, right about the third time that I went through it, I didn't just read it as a book. I actually sat down there and did scholarly studies of it. Every time that I was reading it, and I would read it about once every 3 years, I sat down with an interlinear Bible, and so I had numerous versions right in front of me. Next to me as well, I would have a concordance. And so when I really wanted to know what was going on, I would go to those, equate the different versions, go to the concordance, find out what the exact meaning was of each particular word that I needed to study up on. And then if I wasn't satisfied with that, or if I wanted more knowledge, I would go to the early Christian writings. Origen, Pliny the Younger, Josephus, and I would read up more about that. That way I had kind of a roundabout idea of what was being said. So when I talk about this, I'm actually talking about something that I have studied for decades and decades. Tommy as well, he has gone through it so many times. He's well versed in this subject. But the reason I didn't want to go there is because, again, Western world, all our families were raised up with this mentality. And so we kind of feel, at least I do, I kind of feel like I'm going to be stepping on some toes.
I feel like that too, just because, well, I was raised Mormon, and I only have one wife. It's nice.
What, only one wife? What's wrong with you?
I know. It's too much. That's way too much work.
Okay, so. All right, hopefully we can cut out the, well, I don't have any coughs since COVID, because I got to wear that damn mask all the time. But what we're going to look at is a little bit of history, a little bit of theory, and this is based upon the research of other people, numerous people, by the way. My head's so full of this stuff because I have done a lot of research on it because of the long time in between episodes. Okay, so in order to do this, we have to go back towards the beginning of Roman history. Okay? Now, Roman history begins a couple hundred years before AD. Okay? A couple hundred years BCE. And when I'm doing this, I'm going to do this as AD, which stands for Anno Domini. Okay? And the reason I'm going to do this is because this is the preferred way of doing things in the church as opposed to CE, which is Common Era. Okay? So our calendars are based upon this number. Okay? The reason other people use CE is because, honestly, they don't want to step on the toes of the church. Okay? So if you use CE, a lot of people feel, oh, well, you know, you're not Christian, you don't believe in God, and so forth. And so the scientific community has a tendency to use CE, and then versely BCE, which is before Common Era. Common Era. Beer's kicking in already. Okay, so we're going to use AD. All right? So a couple hundred years before AD, the Roman Empire began. When the Roman Empire began, and as they were expanding their territory, what they would find is that it was easy for them to take particular aristocracy families, okay, and what they would do is each family would take a particular god, and they would become the patrons of it. Okay, and so nowadays, when you look at old Roman coins, you would often find that there would be a particular ruler on one side, and on the other side, you would have a picture of the temple that family was patrons of. Okay, but as the Roman Empire expanded, there was a lot of families. There was a lot of temples, because they would go in and they would take over a particular area, and they had the habit of adopting a number of their gods. And they would do that because that was the easiest way to ease that civilization into the Roman Empire. One particular peoples that they became very entranced with was the Greeks. Okay, and everybody knows that Greek mythology has a lot of commonalities with Roman mythologies. Okay, as an example, Zeus became Jupiter to the Romans. Okay, and they continued to do that until the Romans finally had a pantheon, and that pantheon consisted of 12 major gods. Okay, but now the aristocracy, that is these families that took over each particular temple, they were the ones that were intertwined with the Senate. The Roman Senate were the secondary leaders. At one time they were called a republic. And so although they had at times a king, or they had a Caesar that was voted in by the Senate, the Senate really was kind of like the United States Congress. Okay, these families that had gone on for generations were the ones that were adopting all these temples. But here's the interesting part about in Roman history, is that when a family took over a temple, and it wasn't just temples, it was also philosophy and science. Okay, so each family took over a particular religion, they took over a particular science, and they were also involved very much into the politics of the Roman Empire. When a family took over, what they had carte blanche to do was to write anything that they wanted on this subject, and no other family could. They were the ones that were responsible. They were the ones that wrote all of these things and related to the public. Okay, so that having been established, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a particular family. And that particular family was the Pietists. Okay, the Pietist family is the name that they were given that the public knew them about. Okay, and so as you go into history, you're often going to find this particular family is under the name Pietist. You'll find that there's multiple generations on down through early on through late Roman history. The other name that particular family was known by is this: Piso. Okay, so we're going to use the name Piso because it's a whole lot easier for me to remember that particular name. Okay, So going back a number of generations, the Piso family's forefathers were members of the Senate. They were an aristocracy, and so their family was involved in politics and religion and philosophy and science. Two particular things that they were responsible for. One of them was the philosophy of Aristotle. I'm not even sure I spelt that correctly. But you remember Aristotle, okay? He is by far the grandfather of all science that we know to this day. That is, as a philosopher, and philosophy and science were so intermixed, as well as religion and politics. Aristotle was the Aristotle, and I believe there's an E after here. I don't know. What am I up to? 3 beers? Okay.
I got one on both now.
Oh, one on both. God damn it, Tommy. I'm not going to be able to keep up with it.
I know. It's
okay.
Terrible. Now it makes sense.
Yep.
The cameraman. Yeah.
Okay. And the editor.
Yeah.
Don't keep that in mind. Okay, so they took on Aristotle. Now, Aristotle was a very obscure person. The only way that he showed up in history until the Piso, I'm going to put the Piso up here, until the Piso family took over, was way back when he was not an general. He was an admiral in... oh God, we're gonna have to edit this out.
It's okay.
Alexander the Great's navy. Okay. Aristotle was an admiral in Alexander the Great's navy. Okay. He was not a philosopher. As a general, he would go and he would conquer particular territories, but he was a writer, and so he would write about that particular civilization. Okay, but he was not a philosopher. It wasn't until much later, hundreds of years later, that the Piso family turned him into a philosopher, and the way that they did that is because they were the ones that had carte blanche on what was written about him. They turned him into a philosopher and a scientist, and they kept referring to him. Different family members would write as different writers, philosophers of the day, so forth, and they would reference Aristotle. And then finally, it became to a point to where the public says, "Oh yeah, he's a real person." But the only thing written about him was that he was an admiral in Alexander the Great's navy. He was not a philosopher, but he wrote about certain civilizations. All the stuff that the Piso family put together is what made Aristotle this great philosopher and scientist at their time. And the implications of that is, what did I say? In modern times, Aristotle is the grandfather
I got one thing.
of science as we know it today. What's that? You got a picture of him? Yep.
But
Aristotle. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. You got to remember, folks, I'm doing this off the top of my head.
But there's no E, so it's A-R.
Oh, sorry.
A-R.
We got it. We got it right now. Okay.
Yep. A-R-I-S-T-O-T-L-E.
T-O-T-L-E. Okay, got it. So the Piso family has a habit of historically taking obscure people in history, turning them into legends. Okay, they did it with Aristotle. Okay, but let's take a look at another story from Roman history. And this goes back to the years of, I'm going to do this because I'm going to do it as a family tree. Emperor Caligula. Okay, everyone's favorite emperor And I can't, honestly, to this day, whenever I see the name Caligula, I think of the movie rather than the statue.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can put that in there. Okay, so I'm going to write a family tree. This is what happened in history. There was a member of the Piso family named Gaius Calpurnius Piso. Gaius Calpurnia Piso was married to... I'm going to move Caligula over, okay? Because you're gonna love this. Caligula, the emperor. Gaius Calpurnius Piso was married to a woman by the name of Arria. Okay, so let me just say who this is. Gaius Calpurnio Piso was a member of the Senate. Arria was a member of the Vestal Virgins. I know Tommy's cracking up over there. Okay. I'm sorry. Gaius Calpurnio Piso and Arria Jr.
Oh, geez.
Okay. In Roman times, the way that we use senior and junior with regards to males, they used with females as well. Okay. Vestal virgins were basically girls that were taken at the age of about 8 to 13. So, Arria Jr. was a Vestal virgin. The Temple of Vesta, again, the girls would be picked between the ages of 8 and 13, and they would be dedicated to the temple for 30 years. And when we say dedicated to it, what that means is that they recognized that the god of the temple was their husband, and they had to remain chaste for those 30 years, under the penalty, get this, of being buried alive. And I went back through the records. There was a number of them that didn't fulfill that obligation, and it's recorded in history of how they were literally buried alive as punishment for their breach of chastity. Okay, however, on the good side of that, if you can imagine, on the good side of that, when they retired from the temple after 30 years, they were given a stipend, a paycheck, so to speak, from the government, and that made them very wealthy, and they were very powerful because the Vestal Virgins were in charge, basically, of seeing that all the ceremonies that took place in Rome were done correctly according to Roman religion, which was very intertwined with Roman politics, which was very intertwined with Roman philosophy and science. Okay, so the point being is that when Gaius Calpurnius Piso, who was a member of the Senate, and Arria Jr. was a part of the Vestal Temple, obviously she married Gaius Calpurnius Piso after she retired from that. They were very powerful. They were definitely a part of the aristocracy that went on. Okay, so remember, we got Caligula way over here on the right-hand side. Here's a very interesting but true story of what took place. And I lost Tommy, so he's either going to round up a shot or a beer. And I don't want him to miss this part because this is the most interesting part of this story.
Wow.
Okay. The day that Gaius Calpurnius Piso and Arria got married, they invited, of all people, Emperor Caligula. Okay, now, at the time, the emperor had the ability to take any woman that he wanted, and she was a very beautiful woman. There's all kinds of statues of Arria Jr. She was a very beautiful woman, but he could take her because it was the emperor's right to have sex with the wife or the woman who was going to become the wife of someone. And he did this. And we're going to learn a lot about Caligula here in a second. Okay, so Caligula, on their wedding day, took Arria as his own wife. And he had her for at least a month. And he continued to have sex with her all during that time. Okay, however, Caligula later went after Gaius Calpurnius Piso and Arria because they kept seeing each other during that month. And so he charged Gaius Calpurnius Piso and Arria with infidelity. Okay? So at the end of the month, he finally gave Arria back to Gaius, and they became husband and wife. But during that time that he was continually having sex with Arria, she got pregnant. And she became the mother of Arius, which is the male version of Arria, Calpurnius. I spelled Calpurnius wrong. Sorry. Beer 3. Piso. Okay. This becomes our central figure. Okay, so you need to understand this. Arius Calpurnio Piso, even though he was raised by Gaius Calpurnio Piso and Arria, was really the son of Arria and Caligula. Okay, because he was born right about 9 months later after this happened. Okay, so now at this point, we're going to erase this. Okay, and we're going to continue on with the family lineage. Okay, so Arius Calpurnius Piso now becomes the central figure. His mother is Arria. Okay, that's important. And really, his father is Caligula, the emperor. Okay, let's go into Caligula for a little bit. Look it up on Wikipedia. Okay, you can find it anywhere. Caligula was an ass. Okay, not only personally, but he created so many problems for the Senate. Okay, because Caligula had a big head. Okay, he was a narcissist to the 10th degree. Okay, and what he used to do is he used to tell the Senate, okay, you are going to worship me as a god. Now, Aristotle comes into this. Aristotle. Did I spell it right? I did. Aristotle. This time comes into this because one of the things and the reasons why the Pisos wanted Aristotle as a philosopher was because he said that God can exist as a man. They needed that in order to pull off what the Piso family was trying to do. Okay? So anyways, Caligula said, I'm a god to the Senate. You are going to worship me as a god. What god did he say he was? He was none other than Jupiter, the highest god in the pantheon of 12 major gods. The father of all the other gods was Jupiter. Okay? In Greek, it would have been Zeus. Okay, so Caligula was claiming to be Jupiter. He also told the Senate, you are going to call me by my new name. My new name is Novi Helion. Okay, this is important. You're going to call me by the name Novi Helion. And if they didn't do it, the Senate members would be chastised and persecuted for not following Caligula's rules. Novi Helion means, in Latin, new sun. You see how this now fits into the catastrophe cycle that we're talking about? It's very interesting that Caligula wanted to be known as the new sun. He wanted to be known as Jupiter, the highest of all the gods. This is the kind of person, the dickhead, he put the dick into dictator. Okay? This is the kind of guy that he was. Okay. So, we got that established. That's going to come back in a little bit here. However, Arius continued to grow up in the this aristocracy family. The family, because of what happened on the wedding day of Gaius Calpurnius Piso and Arria, were really pissed off at the emperor. Really pissed off. Later, Gaius Calpurnius Piso was forced to commit suicide by Emperor Nero in, I believe it was 64 CE at this time, because Gaius, Arius's father, was part of a major conspiracy to put Nero to death. Okay? So now when you look at the Roman Senate at this time, it was full of corruption and murder, and as you're going to see, genocide. And in the meantime, the Piso family kept jogging for power, and they were in a good position to do it because of how popular they were. Okay, Arius Calpurnius Piso was really the son of Caligula. Caligula claimed that he was God. That meant that Arius Calpurnius Piso considered himself to be the son of God. Okay, got that? Caligula claimed to be God. Arius, his son, considered himself to be the son of God. Okay, but here's the problem. Okay, he couldn't claim his own father, or the father that raised him. You might think of it as Joseph raising Jesus. Okay, he couldn't claim Gaius as his father. He had to claim Caligula as his father. Why? Because he was jogging for position. He wanted his family to take over the emperorship. Okay, so I can't remember why I put that block there. Okay, have we got that so far? Okay, now here's an interesting point.
You got to put one on me for shot and one on me for
Oh
beer.
God, Jesus, I'm not gonna.
One there. Yep.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, we can't offend anyone by leaving Jesus out.
Well.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to leave Arria up here, okay, for a minute. Okay. Arius Calpurnius Piso. Remember that in the Roman Empire, people were known by a number of different names. Okay. Arius, which was his first name. Calpurnius was a family name. So was Piso. And so what you saw here is a family tree, so to speak, of in his lineage. Another part of his lineage was he was a member of the Flavius family. Okay, remember Emperor Flavius? Okay, so all the time they were adding these. It's kind of like the Spanish do today, where they have multiple names. Okay, what it is, it's really a lineage of where they came from. Okay, so Arius also had a claim to the emperorship through the Flavian family. Okay, here's an interesting point. The point, first of all, is that in Roman times, people had many different names. And on top of that, they would have all kinds of pen names. Okay, what they would do is they would write all kinds of stuff and they would use a different name. That's not unheard of. Okay, as an example, Stephen King wrote a lot of stuff under the name Richard Bachman. It's not unusual. When you look at a modern day Tom Clancy novel, you'll notice that Tom Clancy is in big letters, and underneath it is the name of the real guy who wrote it. Okay? The important point was that they were writing in the style of something. Okay? And if you're writing in the style of Tom Clancy, then it has Tom Clancy in big numbers. And this is what we call a canon. That is, it's a way of writing things, but it has to fit a certain style. The number of canons that we have today, you know them. Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel Comics. Everything is written as a canon, meaning that you can write whatever you want, but if it doesn't fit into a certain style, if it doesn't fit into a particular lineage of characters or so forth, or things that support the story, it doesn't become a part of the canon. You can look up Marvel canon right now. You realize all those damn movies that they have put out, they have to follow a common story. Okay, I'm going to leave the word canon up there for a second because you can see where I'm going with this. Arius Calpurnius Piso was a very prolific writer. He wrote in all kinds of different styles. Remember Aristotle that we talked about? Okay, but he was also a Stoic, meaning that he wrote in a style of the Stoics at the time. Okay, who are the Stoics? The Stoics are your predecessors of lawyers today. They are the ones that would take an argument and they would break it down into multiple parts so that they could find out how it is that they could win a case, so forth. They could break that argument down. They could say, oh, yeah, this is really this, and that's really that. And they could create, what do they call it? Benefit of doubt. Okay? So all legal cases today, you have to prove something beyond the benefit of doubt. That's what the Stoics are known for. This is what they created. Okay? Arius Piso was great at that. He was great at writing in different styles. One of his grandsons, who is known as the writer Pliny the Younger, even mentioned in his own writings that, oh, you write in so many different styles. It's just absolutely amazing. Okay? So, we had Caligula as God, Arius Piso as Son of God. One other name that Arius Piso is known for is Flavius Josephus. Now, if you've ever read Flavius Josephus, which I have, I've read everything by Flavius Josephus numerous times. This guy is known for two things. Flavius Josephus, according to the historical record, was a Jew who fought in battles with the Romans at the times of the revolts. There were three major Jewish revolts. And the Romans allowed him to stay on because he was a Jewish historian. Okay, here's what we're coming down to. Flavius Josephus was the first mention of the name Jesus. That name shows up nowhere until Flavius Josephus wrote it. Which means that Jesus is a product of this writer. What was he writing about? Arius Calpurnius Piso said he was the Son of God. Caligula. Who's this? Son of God. Arius Calpurnius Piso was writing about himself. He was writing about those characters in there. As an example, Joseph, Joseph was what? His stepdad. Okay, the guy who raised him, but wasn't his real father. Who was his mom? Mary. Mary is a derivative of the name Miriam. Who's Miriam? Miriam is the mother of Moses.
She's kind of a slut.
Okay, here's an interesting one. Arya is actually Miriam. And why you put the M's on the side is because of the code that the Piso family used for generations to identify themselves as the writers of these things. Okay, you can get into that at some other point, but it's also Maria. Okay, and Maria is a derivative of Mary. Okay, so the point that I'm making here is this. Jesus did not exist until he was written of the first time by Flavius Josephus, who was really Arius Calpurnio Piso. After this was written, a number of early Christian writers, Origen, Pliny the Younger, okay, name just about any early Christian writer. Who were they? Pliny the Younger is the grandson of Arius Calpurnius Piso. So what was going on here? What was going on here is that the Piso family, remember, they were an aristocratic family. They had carte blanche to write whatever they wanted about whoever they were patrons of. In one case, it was Aristotle. I got to spell it again. The other case was Christianity. Okay? Why did they become patrons of Christianity? Now I have to erase everything because I have no room. Okay. All right. Oh, man. Good thing for the magic of Tommy.
Oh, geez.
Because once this is recorded, you can go over and over and over it again. Okay, so I'm going to add up here Arius. Arius Calpurnio Piso. Now keep in mind, this is not based upon my research. I just happened to come across the research. But the research that was done spans decades of scholarly research into Jewish and Roman history. Okay, so where was I going with this? Okay.
Penis.
Yeah. Josephus is the first person, Flavius Josephus, first person to mention it. Later on, numerous other early Christians start writing about it. Okay, and so through the span of history, what they did is they took this character, Jesus, okay, and they created this lineage through them. How did they do that? Well, they did it in a number of different ways. Okay, and that was by, one, writing the New Testament, and the other is by rewriting the Old Testament. Well, wait a minute. The Old Testament goes back, about 2,000 years of history through the Judean system. How the hell did they do that? Think of it. Okay, the Roman Empire took over the Middle East. And when they took over the Middle East, that included Syria. Syria at the time was the political capital of all of, among other things, Judea. They took over the Jewish system of things. And so the Judean system of things, during the first 100 years that the Romans took over everything, they went from 8 million people down to 3 million people. More than half of the population was killed off by the Romans. Okay? To the victor goes the spoils. They are the ones that get to write history. And so what did they do? Early Christian writers. They wrote the history, including Josephus, who is probably the authority on Judean history. Okay? And so what they did, they not only wrote the New Testament under the names of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, Peter, and so forth. Okay? They wrote under those particular names. Mark is interesting because it turns out there's actually 4 authors to the book of Mark. But Mark is also interesting because Mark was the first book that was ever written. These books, Matthew, Luke, and John, were added supplementally in order to establish a childhood and lineage. Okay, now we can't just add that. Okay, we also have to add the apocryphal books. Okay, the apocryphal books were written by the Pisos as well. Why? They were the aristocratic family. They could do whatever they wanted. Okay? But why did they do it? Okay, well, first of all, let's go back to the Old Testament. Remember, 8 million people, 8 million Jews were killed. 8 million Jews was the population and went down to 3 million. Romans essentially won. Okay, they could do whatever they want. What did they do? They took the Jewish rabbis at the time and they told them, you are going to rewrite your history the way that we tell you to. Okay? And you're going to do it in Hebrew, in Aramaic. Okay? And you're going to write what we tell you to, and we're going to add it to it. They had no choice. It was either that or all of the people were going to be killed. Why did they do that? Because the Jewish people refused to play ball with the Romans. They absolutely categorically refused it. Okay, interesting story. Yes, do you believe me? Probably not. But I encourage you to look it up because it's true. And I have spent months and months and months going over this history, enough to the point I'm doing this off the top of my head. That's why I'm not throwing a whole lot of names and dates in there. I'm just giving you the nutshell of the history. Okay? But it is based upon research that has been done for decades and decades and decades of Roman and Jewish history. Why did they do it? One reason, and one reason only. Power. They needed to control the population. They needed to create this history in order to create a universal religion for their empire to control the people. Why? Because the Romans had a habit. Remember, I told you this before. They would go into a population, they would take over it, they would take on some of their gods as a way of controlling those people. But they finally got so big that they had to do this. The reason the Pisos wanted it is because they wanted the power to do this. They wanted the emperorship, the kingship. But it worked good for the Senate, the Roman Senate, and even the emperors, because they were along with this as well, because they were gaining control over mass amounts of people. Okay, why do we bring this up? Because in the first century AD, a system was set up to control the people, and that system remains to this day. How so? Well, Tommy and I were talking about it just earlier. The U.S. Senate. The U.S. is a republic.
Not a democracy.
Well, it's a democratic republic. This is what right now we're a democratic republic. I'm just saying that's what we're termed as.
It totally.
Okay. But the difference between emperors and kings, as an example, you had Emperor Caligula, but you had King Nemo, who was the first king, okay, is the difference between a republic and a democratic republic. It's just how it's run at any particular time. In a republic, things are run by a senate. In a democratic republic, it's run by the people. And the last thing the Roman Senate wanted was for anything to be run by the people, because every time they tried to do that under an emperor, everything got fucked up. Okay, so they don't want that to happen. But the point is, or the Romans didn't want that to happen. But the point is, it's all about control of the people. What did they control? Well, let's go back to the catastrophic theory that we're talking about, the cyclical catastrophic theory. Do they want you to know about it?
Fuck no.
No. Why? Because they lose control. Okay? How else is that first century, should we call it a conspiracy? Sure, we can call it a conspiracy. How is it evident today? Pizzo is another way of spelling pious. In Roman spelling, these are the same. Where do we know this name from? Who's pious? Pope John Pius. It's a continuation of this.
And Prius.
And Prius. Yes, so don't buy a Prius.
Don't buy a fucking Prius.
Don't fall into it, man.
And fuck Al Gore.
Okay.
Can I put that in there?
Sure.
Okay.
I think you just did. Okay. The point is, and now we're not going to single anyone out, okay? The point is this. It started with the Roman Empire. Okay? The Roman Empire. Okay? The Roman Empire had religion, science, and politics. Okay? Later on in, I gotta think, okay, it's gonna be I'll just round it off, 4th century. You had what was called the Council of Nicaea. And the Council of Nicaea is the ones that created, I gotta go to a different color. I owe you some pens.
Sweet.
Okay, new pens. The Council of Nicaea did what? Under Constantine the Great, who was the emperor at the time, put together the Council of Nicaea. There was 4 other councils, and basically what the councils were doing is they were taking all the religious and political figures together and saying, okay, we need to set up a system to control the people. We need to set up a system that everyone is following. One of the things they did at the Council of Nicaea is they created the Canonical Bible. 66 books that is known as the Bible today. They continued to propagate this. Okay, at the same time, what they set up was the early church leadership and the way that they would do this. And the way that early church leadership was the other three councils that they set up, how to do things, to set it in place. We know that today as, of course, the head of it, which is the Vatican. Okay, I'm not going to pick on it at this point. I want to make a point here, but it still exists today in this form as the Vatican. The Vatican is its own country with its own laws, and they can do basically whatever they want. And that's an area that spans what? A few kilometer miles, a few kilometer miles, a few square miles of territory. But look at what they own. 1/3 of all people. How do they do it? Religion. What was religion? This particular religion set up as? Control. Okay, so at this point, you may want to go back to, my experience in the 1970s. I lived in California at the time, but I had a good friend. Who, I'm up one. Where are you at?
2.
2? Jeez. Shots or beer?
I haven't had shots yet.
No shots
They're
yet.
outside.
Okay. Wait, we got to put something in here. Okay. Scott. Okay. Scott, Tommy. P breaks.
Oh yeah, we got that too.
Okay.
We're doing that soon?
Yeah, we're doing that real soon.
Sweet.
Okay, so the point is, I'm not going to pick on the Catholics. Here's why. Back in the 70s, I had a good friend in California who was Irish Catholic. And he would go back and forth from the States back to Ireland all the time. And this was during the time of the war that was going on between the Catholics and the Protestants. And seeing as how I was 10 or 12 at the time, it was impressionable on me that people who claimed to be following the same religious leader would murder each other to such great extent. And the things that I would hear from his family about what they were doing, it was just inconceivable to me, to use a Princess Bride term. Inconceivable to me that people of the same religion would murder one another the way that they did. And it was later on that I learned that this is actually the way that Christianity has gone for 2,000 years. And if they weren't fighting against each other, they were fighting against someone else. Okay. Bear skeleton. Okay. So, what was the point I was getting to?
Son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch. God damn it.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay. So,
excuse me.
I'm not going to pick on the Catholics. Here's why. Let's use an analogy. I smoke cigarettes. Okay?
Fuck.
Here's the cool thing. I can quit smoking cigarettes if I go to nicotine gum.
Okay.
Okay?
Sorry, bro.
Or I can go to nicotine tablets. Or any number of things. Vape, which still has nicotine in it. Do you see where I'm getting to? What difference does this make whether I'm smoking cigarettes or I'm still addicted to the major drug? Same thing with Christianity. You may not like the Catholics, but if you're a member Pentecostals, Baptists, I mean, there's so many, there's hundreds of them. Baptists, Tommy mentioned Mormons, or any evangelist.
Or like born agains that just like judge you over and over.
Evangelistics. What difference does it make? If the foundation of what started it is the problem, it doesn't matter which branch you go to. It makes no difference. Okay? We're going to pause right there. I'm going to do the first bathroom break.
Sweet.
And then I'll come back.
All right.
All right, let's go with that. Sound's working. Cameras are on.
Everything.
Okay, sorry. Let's update. 1, 1. Okay, I want you to look at the ratio, which things are going here. There is no way to outdrink Tommy. I'll just let you know that. Okay, which is awesome because the magic of Tommy brings all these episodes to you. Okay, so the point is that it doesn't matter which version of Christianity that you go to. If the foundation is built on sand, it doesn't stand. Okay? And I know that this hits at the heart of most of our audience. But the point is that unless you get rid of that particular foundation, you're still going to be a product of control. That's not going to, I'm not going to highlight one religion over another because they're all like that. Okay, as an example, oh man, I'm going to have a bomb go off in my house. Let's take a look at Islam, okay? Let's just look at it in a very general way. Islam, the two main characters in it are Michael and Gabriel. Okay, these are the two archangels that gave Muhammad the Quran. Michael and archangels are the product of Arius Piso. They were created by him. They were wedged into the Old Testament in the books of Daniel and others. And it was built as a reason to build up the history of his character Jesus. Okay? And the prophecies that pointed towards him. And he was able to do that, remember what we talked about, is because the Romans had decimated the Jews to the point that they could actually take control of and rewrite their history. Okay? So, that being the case, what does that say for Islam? Built on a false foundation. Okay? So again, we're not going to point to any particular religion because the more you look into it, you'll realize that even the Judean system is built upon not so much as the founders of a religion, they are built upon the finders of a technology that led to their religion. Okay? I'm not going to go into that. There are so many things out there that will point you to that. Okay, so the point is that this was set up by the Piso family as a system of control. That control lasts now 2,000 years into our modern day era, even to the point where even our calendar is based upon this fabrication that was invented by this aristocracy, this family that was perpetuated for literally hundreds of years. Okay, because we began before the Romanian monk who made Anno Domini did not understand the number 0. began in the year 1, but actually went 200 years. It began 200 years before the year 1 Anno Domini, and wasn't really solidified into the Roman system of things until the 4th century. Okay, so hopefully I proved that point to you already. So this is a family tradition, a family conspiracy, if you will, that has lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. The effect of that is that now that we're in the 21st century, we are still feeling the ramifications of that conspiracy. Okay, so, whoops. Okay, here's the deal about conspiracies. Traditionally, I don't believe them. I don't believe anything that I can't see or hear or feel or touch or taste or whatever, that I can't sense with my physical senses. But after going through this particular history, I'm beginning to realize that there is a number of truths to numerical systems, to conspiracies, and so forth. I'm beginning to understand where they originated from and how they're still affecting us to this day. All right, so where does that leave us with?